Morning, it's Michelle from Buttercup Jewellery. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about metal clay. I've been asked by Kerner Craft to make a little tutorial about how I make some of my metal clay and enamel jewellery. So I'm going to be doing some little video clips of that and some photos that you'll be able to follow in a straightforward tutorial. So I thought I'd just start off by going through a little bit of the equipment and materials that you need to get started in metal clay. It's a really amazing way of making jewellery. It's really straightforward. It's not expensive in terms of buying equipment to get you started. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that I use and I'll be using. So obviously you need some metal clay, and it comes in lots of different sized packs. I have just always used art clay, but there's PMC. I use silver, but you can get all sorts of different base metals, copper, bronze. You can get gold as well, and paint on top of the silver with some gold. It can come in forms like I'll be showing you when I do my example. It looks a lot like normal clay, sort of plasticine kind of texture, or you can get it in syringe form, so you can then syringe on little bits of detail or make your more elaborate designs, and then it can also come in a form that you can paint on. I haven't explored that one yet, but that will no doubt be a plan for the future. And then in terms of equipment to actually make your pieces, I've got a little Perspex plastic board that I use because it's non-stick, so that allows you to roll the material out and not worry too much about it sticking to anything. And I just use a little plastic roller. You can buy these, or you can just make them from pieces of tube, or if you do fondant icing and things like that, then they're the same sorts of ones that you would use for that. So they're easy to buy. And you can make freehand designs, but you can also use fondant cutters to make your designs. So for my little flowers, I'm going to be using the slightly larger cutter. This one makes a small one that I use when I'm putting like forget-me-not rings and things together. But the thing to remember with metal clay, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, when you fire it, it becomes a little bit smaller, 10% smaller, so you need to just take that into account. You'll also need some way of getting your metal clay at a level height across the piece. So you'll hear metal clay workers talk a lot about using playing cards, because then you can get a consistency across the height, but you can also buy little plastic strips that you can layer up. But to be honest, a cheap pack of playing cards is absolutely fine and adequate. I also have a little water bottle, so I can just keep the piece moist, because the more you handle the metal clay, the drier it becomes and it will start to crack, and you don't obviously want cracking in your pieces. So just have a little water bottle handy. And then if you're using your roller or your board or on your cards, I just have a little pot with some olive oil in, so I can just put a little tiny bit of that onto any tools I'm using, so again it doesn't stick. And then you might also just have a little paintbrush around, so that if you need to move the metal clay, you can do that in a gentle way without damaging it. I also have a pack of wet wipes, because you never know, but also because when you've got any little bits of leftover metal clay, it's silver, so you don't want it to go to waste, you don't want it to dry out. So you put it back into packaging, and I'll show you what it comes like in the next little video when you take it out of the packaging. But I put it back in. I sometimes then wrap that in a wet wipe just to make sure there's some moisture with it, and I pop it into a box just to keep it moist and usable for another session. And you can also buy little cutters that you can use. Here comes my dog. That will obviously give you different shapes. So if you've got a particular design in mind, just have a look online. There are absolutely tons of different shapes you can buy, and textures that you can buy as well to give you a different effect on the front of your clay. But again, you don't have to spend a small fortune. Pieces of wallpaper, bits of leather, any materials you find around the house, things like the net that oranges come in, that orangey greeny net that you can have around oranges, that gives a lovely texture. So all sorts of, anything, leaves, you can make beautiful textures in your metal clay without spending a small fortune on textures. So that's a little start off video, and then I'll just show you the next process when you actually start getting going with making your piece.